Polish the Mirror podcast. We are back again with episode number 16. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I'm so glad you're joining us. If this is your first time to catch one of the Polish the Mirror podcast episodes, this podcast is a direct reflection of my life. I'm Amy Thurman, your host, and I have lived the past 10 years with a broken neck that went undetected for 6 months. But I have been able to find hope in the midst of that adversity. And so I am finding as I'm going along sharing my journey with people that people have so many stories to tell, that people are finding hope in the midst of adversity as well. But there was really no platform that I knew of for them to share those stories. So I created one. So that's what this podcast is about, allowing others to share their stories of hope gained in the midst of adversity. And oh my goodness, some of these stories are amazing. There's so much hope. I just love sharing the message of hope. And so I hope that you are inspired and find hope today through this podcast, this episode, and through the others. Go to hashtag Polish the Mirror Podcast. They stream live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. And then I upload the audio to all of the podcasting platforms. So pretty much if you just search Polish the Mirror Podcast, you will find it somewhere. All right, well, let's get into this today. I'm so excited to introduce you to my guest today. This is my friend, Chris Mitchell. Chris, thank you so much for being here.
Long time no see. You were on my podcast Tuesday. It's like, actually, it had been a long time because we pre-taped mine. But yeah, nice to see you again. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Of course. Yes, this is Thursday. 2 days ago, my episode that I did with Chris on his podcast aired. And so it's like, oh, hey, here we are again. It's just so funny that they ended up falling in line like this. So
I planned
so
it
good
that way.
to. Oh, you did?
Yes, I did.
Oh, you're sneaky, Chris. So good to see you again. I love your story. I love what you're
Thank
doing
you.
with the adversity that you have been through. Stories like yours just warm my heart and need to be shared. Like people in the world need to know about people like you who are doing things with the adversity that help others. And so I just want to turn it over to you and let you share whatever you want to share about your hope that you gain in the midst of adversity.
Awesome. Let's first start with my adversities, and that's plural for a reason.
Yeah.
I was born with CRS, which is congenital rubella syndrome, which for lay people, that means my mom was exposed to German measles while she was carrying me. That's not that common today. It was back in the 60s when I was born. So yes, I am a dinosaur. I will admit that. No, I do not know Barney the dinosaur, but I am a dinosaur. So anyway, because of the CRS, excuse me, I'm battling a little cold. Because of the CRS, I was born with a constricted aorta and cataracts, and the cataracts left me legally blind. 2200 in my left eye, 2300 in my right. I can read out of my left eye. I can't really read out of my right eye, but you know, everyone can recognize the big golden arches, right? And I can out of my right eye. I found food.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, food, you know, as a kid, you know, you gravitate towards those golden arches. At least you did in my day when the restaurants looked like a happy place. Now they look like a depressed old man, the buildings, the redesign. So if that company's listening, sorry, I don't like the new look. I don't like coffee shops. Anyway, and I'm not on coffee. So this is my natural energy level. And I did have a constricted aorta, which required several surgeries before I came home from the hospital. I don't think I came home from the hospital until I was 1 or 3 months old. I was in there for a while. I was born around Christmas, by the way, so it was a very stressful time for my parents. And as I started to grow, I was late at talking. I did not start talking to 2. My parents now reflect upon that and wish it was later. But when I did start talking, I had such a severe speech impediment that I had to go into speech therapy before I began preschool. And once I began preschool, I did not do all that well in preschool. I had some behavior issues, which continued throughout my childhood, and earned me the opportunity, because I wound up going to the Missouri School for the Blind because of my vision, to be invited to seek education elsewhere. At 2nd grade, I was asked to leave the Missouri School for the Blind, and I went to my neighborhood school for all my the kids. I thought that was great. It was great for me because the world's not going to adapt to my disability, so this is a great way to adapt to the world and be a normal person. So getting kicked out of school was, well, My parents were not proud of it, but it was a good thing for me. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, in ninth grade, I was again asked to seek education somewhere else. I came to school in a really bad attitude in the morning, kicking lockers, ripping posters off the wall, throwing a binder
Mm.
across the room into the garbage can. My teacher would not have anything of it. He told me to go to the office. I told him no, because I knew I would get Saturday morning detention. If I got Saturday morning detention, it's September. Not too many nice days left in St. Louis. That's where I grew up. My mom would ground me, and I wanted to hang out with my peeps, my friends in the afternoon. So I refused to go. So the principal came down to the classroom. Now I had to figure out a way to get out of trouble with them. I had a plan. Now remember, I'm like 14 at the time. This is the
Oh boy.
14-year-old's plan. So he
Yes. My
walked
son
into
is
my desk.
14, so I'm eager to
I'm
hear this.
and if you're 14, don't do this. Okay, it was bad. He walked into my desk. He told me to come with him. I refused. So I pulled my left leg back and kicked him hard in the shin.
Oh geez.
So this I came this close, and I don't know if you can see it in the camera, about less than a thickness of a piece of notebook paper from getting charged with assault. and,
Wow.
and I got expelled from my high school and asked to seek education elsewhere, which was a wonderful thing for me, because I met a teacher who told me, told all of us, I was in a classroom with kids with behavior problems, that when any of us acted out, she had a mantra: I like you. I don't like your behavior. And that was the
Mm.
first time anyone separated those two in my life. And it changed my
Wow.
life. And I'm very indebted to Mrs. Lyons for doing that for me. And I did earn the opportunity and the privilege to return to the same high school that expelled me and graduate on time with my class. So that was super.
Wow.
But
Oh,
I've
that's
also been
great.
invited to seek education elsewhere twice in two different colleges. So this
You have
boils
quite
down
the
to,
record, Chris.
yes, I have. you know, a little funny side story here. I volunteered in the Lunch Buddy program, which is you get to be a mentor for a kid in school. It was a great program. It was through Big Brothers Big Sisters up here in Joplin. I say up here because I know you're in Oklahoma.
Right.
And we were at lunch, and we do this every week and all. And this guy walked by, and my stomach got a real knot in it, a big knot. And I asked the kid I was working with, who is that guy? And he said, oh, that's the school principal. So I still have phobia. I can still identify a school principal
Wow. Oh my
just by
word.
them
You
walking by. I went, oh my gosh, that's the principal.
run and
so,
hide.
so the reason I told you all of that fun stuff about me, which was not fun at the time, is I was, after my second time being asked to leave a college, I was diagnosed with ADHD.
Mhm.
So I have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So at that time, I was in my 30s. I was this close. I mean, I was really close to finally graduating from college after many, many years. And
Yeah.
I got expelled from it. But the real funny part is, I later got hired by that college to teach a course. So,
Oh, that is so funny.
so yeah, so that worked out for me,
Yeah.
and all, and and then after that expulsion, I was dating at the time, and my girlfriend stayed by me. She helped fight to get me my ADHD diagnosis. I had to go into the hospital for surgery, and for my constricted aorta, they done surgeries when I was born, when I was in first grade, third grade, and I'd outgrown those, so they had to do an ascending to descending aortic bypass to bypass the constricted aorta for better blood flow in my body. During that operation, sometime between the time I climbed onto the table and woke up in the CVICU, I survived an ischemic stroke to my spinal cord.
Oh my
Now, if you're
gosh.
wondering what that is, for lay people, it's a stroke because it presents and looks a lot like a stroke. Medically, it's technically an incomplete spinal cord injury. So I lost the ability to run, walk, or
Mm.
even stand. And how I found out about it was one of the worst ways you could find out. They got me up after my surgery. They got me off the vent, which I hate the vent. I never want to be in a vent again. Like that
Yeah.
being known, having a tube down your throat, not being able to talk was horrible.
Gosh.
And I like talking. Anyway, so they wanted me to get up and stand and take a couple steps to prevent pneumonia, which is good. You don't want to have pneumonia after surgery. It's high risk of that.
Exactly.
So they
Yeah.
had me get up, stand up, and when I stood up, I instantly fell to my knees on the hard linoleum floor.
Wow.
And we thought, well, he's just kind of weak, tired. So they got me back up in the gurney, and they tried a few hours later. And this time I said, you know what? I'm a little bit worried about falling. Can you let me hold on to something just in case? So they brought over this IV pole that had three wheels at the bottom. I thought, that's not going to help. For something that does not move. But I was
Right.
in no mood to argue with the nurse. So I tried getting up. This time I went down even harder and faster. Then the nurses
Jeez.
scurried back to the nurses station because they knew something was wrong. And a
Yeah.
few days later, we did an MRI and found out I had an incomplete spinal cord injury in the thoracic part of my spine.
Oh my goodness.
I spent about 2 weeks in the hospital, and then I was given a choice. I can either go home or go to rehab hospital. And I wanted to go home and just go to sleep and wake up and this whole entire nightmare be over. But I made the
Yeah.
wise decision to go to a rehabilitation hospital because I knew that was going to give me the best chance for the fullest possible recovery. Now there's a lot more to the story. I'm not going to go into all of it right now, but I did write a book about it called "It Doesn't Define Me," and it's available on Amazon, so you can read the full story of how
I
I
love
survived
that.
that and how I fought to rebuild my life and all. And one of the things that happened in the rehab is I was scared to death. I would never be able to go back home. I was engaged at the time. And I thought, and this is not
Mm.
the happily ever after my wife would like to. Well, my at that time fiance. Spoiler alert: we did get married. Um, that every girl dreams of. This is not the happily ever after
Yeah.
that we had planned or she wanted. I mean, this is. I mean, I was 10 months away from my wedding, and this happened, and I went, this is not good. And there were many nights I was scared I would never be able to go back home, but I worked
Mm.
hard. I fought through it. I had a lot of wonderful support from my at that time fiance. She was there every morning around 7:30 in the morning to help me get dressed until
Oh,
visiting hours at 8 o'clock were done, and she went home. And she did that every single day for 3 weeks.
wow.
And she went to all my therapies with me and encouraged me through the whole thing. She's a wonderful person. It has to be to put
What
up with all the energy that I have.
what a gift. Oh my gosh, what a
Yes.
gift she is.
So now to your question, what gave me hope? Well, one is my faith. I'm a person of faith. I don't know. It does not show it well in this camera here, the lighting in here, but on my wall, which I call my success wall, because we'll talk about this a little bit later. I am a confidence life coach. I have up there a plaque that has my favorite scripture up there, which is Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Him who strengthens me, and that did give me hope and the gift that He had given me to be determined all through my life, every challenge, being expelled from schools, having losing jobs, everything I've been through, that built me to be a much stronger person than I could be on my own. He put me through all of that for this challenge, my physical challenge, which is probably the second biggest challenge or the second biggest obstacle that I've ever faced in my life. And I make a long story short. Today, because of my determination and my faith, I went through the rehab hospital, went home, went to outpatient therapy for 6 months. And then my insurance company said, "You're not progressing enough. We're not going to pay anymore." So,
Yeah.
interpretation, we don't believe in you anymore. I said, I believe
Mhm.
in myself. It took me a few years. I taught
Right,
myself how to
yes.
walk again.
Wow.
7 years after the injury, 6.5 years after my last outpatient rehab, we were at a Target, and they had those cool scooters inside Target, and I wanted to ride
Yes.
one of those. And I thought, there's no point in my wife getting my wheelchair out of the car, wheeling me in. I get in the scooter, she takes the wheelchair back, and we do the reverse to leave the store. So we parked at Target, and I told my wife, her name's Kim, go get that red shopping cart. So she brought it over to me. And that was the first time I took a step without, on my own since the injury by pushing that.
Wow.
It was not pretty. It was very hard and frightening
Yeah.
'cause I thought it was going to fall. But that's
Yeah.
how I started teaching myself how to walk again. I don't walk independently. I have a rollator. That's a walker with four wheels and
Mhm.
to get around. But I did that because I had the determination. God gave me the courage to do that, and that's where my strength comes from, to accomplish all that I can do in my life, and I'm very grateful for that. That's where I have the strength
Yeah.
to do what I'm able to do in my life, despite all these obstacles that have been thrown at me in my life.
That's oh my gosh. I told you all that are listening and watching that Chris's story is fascinating, right? Like you have been through so much, Chris, and People tell me the same thing, like, especially after they read my book and it goes into detail what I've actually been through. That like, how did you survive all of this? And I heard you talking about, and in my own story too, there's a lot of resilience that's involved. Like, you have to have that resilience. And my friend Blair Kaplan Venables calls it the resilience muscle, that the more we use it, the bigger it gets, and we can use it more. But what I've recently found out, I've been doing some research for an exciting project I'm working on, that hope is actually a greater measure of success than resilience. And so I heard you talking about throughout your whole story that there was a measure of hope there. Would you say that's true?
I would say that's true, yes, and resilience and all, and the key to all of that has been the self confidence that uh, um, through my faith and work that I've done has given me the hope and the courage and the stubbornness. And I was a stubborn kid. My parents hated it, but I
Me
think it was one of
too.
the blessings in me to get through all the stuff I've had to face in my life,
Yes.
and that comes from having confidence in who I am and my abilities.
That it's so true, Chris. You and I have so much in common because I was oh my gosh, such a hard headed kid. My mom used to tell me all the time I was hard headed, and I did hard headed things. I was, but it turned into determination. I refused to give up. I refused to allow something to beat me. I was going to keep going until I beat it, until I came out on top. And sounds like you were the same way, and that has played an important role in getting you where you are today.
Oh yes, yes. Being that stubborn and bullheaded has helped because I ran into a lot of walls in my life between my ADHD, which is a makes me part of the neurodivergent community because most people are neurotypical.
Yes.
Neurodivergent people have a different way of seeing the world and thinking and interpreting it, and and so the being neurodivergent has given me a lot of challenges, but having that determination to overcome them and the stubbornness has done that, has helped me because back in my day, about my ADHD and my behavior issues, I go to the principal's office. That's what they said.
Mhm. Yes.
My wife has a nurse practitioner, and her kid, 6 years old, has ADHD, and now he's a 6 years old. He's in like kindergarten, first grade, and when he has that energy he cannot get rid of, they the teacher puts some tape behind his desk. He has a box he can move around in freely, but he has to stay in that box. Instead of sending them to the principal's office, I'm noticing in education they're doing more to help kids who have ADHD and other neurodiverse issues, and that is wonderful. But my time, it wasn't that supportive or even understood, and I'm just glad that I had the determination to fight through everything and not let anything, what I say in my business name, define me. I don't let any outside force define who I am or who I can be. I define me, and that's what I encourage people to do. Define yourself. Don't let anyone else tell you who you can be or what you can or cannot do.
I love that so much. It's my 14-year-old son also has ADHD and mild autism, and so
Mhm.
it's true that your brain just works differently. And we have been really working along with his therapist to help him see that that's a gift,
It
that it's
is.
not something to be ashamed of. And so he will boldly say now, "I have ADHD and autism." Like he's proud of it because it
Yeah,
truly is a gift.
it is.
And you're right, the schools are doing more to be able
Mhm.
to work with those type of people instead of just send them to the principal's office.
Now, I'm a little hesitant to say this because it's not official yet, but I will. I've been talking a little bit about it on social media. I am going to be screened because my primary care physician suspects this, and I have too for a while. I'm going to be in the process of being screened to see if I'm also on the autism spectrum at the end of May. So that's something that we are highly suspicious of, and we are working to find out for sure by an official diagnosis. I know in the autism community, it is acceptable for adults to self diagnose because it's so hard to find somebody who can properly diagnose an adult with autism. But I'm trying to do the path to get the official diagnosis because one thing I've always said, and now I may have to eat my words, I don't recommend people self-diagnose themselves, but I may have to change that opinion of things. But yeah, because they suspect that I'm also on the spectrum. But yeah, it's a gift because we get to see a world in a different way than anyone else. And I think the most creative people are neurodivergent people because we don't think inside the box. We push out the box, we make it a big circle, and we see everything
Exactly.
and all. And one of the things that I have that Uh, I, my counselor suspects may gives them reason to suspect I may be in spectrum. I see things literally, and I learned how to mask, which is a term in the autism community, um,
Hmm.
because I have so much energy from my ADHD. And I will make it into a joke when I'm being literal, just in case if I'm wrong, then I don't feel like people think he's an idiot. Now, this sounds like a
Yeah.
joke to people, but in reality, I really do things, see things, and take things very literally all the time. And I don't. I'm great at being sarcastic. I'm great at catching sarcasm on TV. My wife says you don't get sarcasm when people are sarcastic to you, and I do not.
Oh, yeah.
It drives me up the
That
wall.
that's definitely one of the symptoms, I guess you would call it. But how exciting that you get to go
I
through that evaluation.
I don't
I,
like the word symptoms
okay,
because
what
to
do you
me
use?
that to me can be a negative connotation, like it's an illness, and it's not. I
Right,
like
right.
characteristics or traits.
Oh, I like that. I'm going to start using that. I
Yeah,
like that.
that may help your son too. You never know.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And it's exciting that you get to go through that assessment because as a person who has gone through many, many tests and things, once you find out, like once you know, okay, this is what it is, this is the diagnosis, it's like you're celebrating, okay,
relief.
great. Now we
Mhm.
know how to deal with it. Now we know how to move forward with it. And so
Yeah.
I'm excited for you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, but I've been. I have a great nephew who's autistic, and he spent some time with us. And looked at him and thought, I used to do that,
Mm,
and that
yeah,
triggered it in me. And back in the '70s, when I was a kid, to get diagnosed with autism, you had to be more on the. I don't like negative terms, but more low functioning.
yeah,
And maybe almost nonverbal. It has to be borderline institutionalized. And now we're
right.
realizing the spectrum. This is my interpretation. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a PhD. Now the spectrum is much wider, and we have a better understanding of it. And a lot of us who are my age or even younger were missed being diagnosed because they did not know at the time. That's my theory. I'm sticking to it.
It's so true. I totally agree because there are so many. Well, that's why it's called a spectrum because
Yeah.
there's so many different pieces of it that you
Hmm.
could fall upon, that could fall in there. So, so, so true. I would love for you to share with everyone. You have shared this amazing thing that you, all of the stuff that you have been through, that
Hmm.
you did not give up, that you kept going. But not only that, you have taken it and you have used it as a way to help others. So,
Yes,
please
I
tell
have.
us a little bit about what you do.
Okay, awesome. Yes, thank you. Again, my apologies. I caught a cold or something. So
No,
I'm
no
battling that.
worries. That's
Uh,
life, right? That's part of
yeah, it
life.
is. So, like I said, I went through that horrible experience of becoming a what you would call a paraplegic from the incomplete spinal cord injury, and I wrote a book about that, and I've done some speaking on that topic. But the thing, and I said earlier in the podcast, the show, that was the second most challenging thing I've had to face in my life. You think,
Right.
what could be worse than that? Well, I'll tell you what that's been worse than that. My potential undiagnosed autism I'd lived with all my life, not
Mm,
knowing it, not understanding it. When I started looking at my life through the lens of assuming I am autistic and looking through the lens, everything in my life started making sense to me. And
yes.
and it's been a wonderful thing. But one of the things I realized in my life, I'm 58. We talked about that before we went on the air. Everyone gets to a point in life, some people younger, some older, and look back upon their life and say, what have I done? You know, when we get out of high school, we have these dreams. And we look back and think, how did I reach those dreams? Especially when you go to high school reunion or you hear about one coming up. And I realized I'd met some of them, not all of them. The ones that I met in my life, I met because of my level of self confidence. The ones I did not meet in my life, I did not meet because of my level of self confidence. And I
So true.
discovered that
Yeah.
success starts with self confidence.
Mm,
I know people tell you to create vision boards, goals, all this stuff, and those are important things to do. But unless you believe in who you are, you're not going to reach your fullest potential. And it took me
yes.
many, many years to learn that. And my mission is to help younger people, anybody in particular, but younger people discover that a lot earlier than I did in my life. I
Mm,
don't want to see any person who faces challenges similar to mine or just like mine get to my age and have more regrets than they would like to own up to. I want to help them discover, develop, and grow their self confidence. So to that end, I've written a book that's going to be coming out on June 18th.
Oh
You're
my
the first audience
gosh.
to know the date.
I was gonna
Called
say, I haven't heard this. So
Yes, June
exciting.
18th. Called
Ah,
Success Starts with Self Confidence.
oh,
10 steps 10 steps to discover, develop, and grow your confidence for the neurodivergent, and then in parentheses, and everyone else.
oh,
Because
so
these are
good.
the 10 steps I worked through. Because on June 29th, 1992, I had been in and out of some psychiatric hospitals for depression. And I just learned over that weekend, that was a Monday, June 29th, 1992, I was going to become an uncle. And that's when I and decided I don't want my new nephew, my first nephew, to ever know about all the depression I've been through, the psychiatric hospital, all that stuff. So I decided I'm going to do something about it. And that's the day I
Mm,
started my journey to discover, develop, and grow my self confidence. And from all the work I've done on me for the last 34 years, the studying I've done doing, it is in this book to help anyone who struggles with self confidence discover, develop, and grow their self confidence. It's written from a neurodivergent point of view. All the behavior issues and troubles that from ADHD and may have been also contributed to autism are in there, but everyone can relate to that. We all have things that we done in our life. We look back and went, what was I thinking? Why did I
exactly.
behave that way? Why did why did I do that thing that cost a relationship or a job? We all go through that. And this
Yeah.
book addresses that and helps you discover, develop, and grow your self confidence. And it starts with self acceptance and accepting who you are, because that's what you got to work with first, who you are. And it starts with a poem from Virginia Satire. I believe I'm pronouncing her last name right. She wrote a poem called I Am Me. She was a counselor back in the
Mm,
early 1900s to a teenage girl that had a lot of questions about her identity and who she was. And in there it says, I am authentically me, and I'm paraphrasing, and anything I don't like about myself, I can change. And that's
mm.
important to know. And you have to start with self acceptance and self love. And then you can start your journey to developing, discovering, and growing your self confidence. So the book is coming out on Amazon on June 18th. Success Starts with Self Confidence. And I will be opening up a one on one coaching for confidence coaching for the neurodivergent. And in particular, I'm interested in ADHD and autism because. Well, we know I have ADHD and we suspect autism, and I'm working on the screening of that. And I'm very passionate about those two areas. But what I do can help everyone who struggles with self confidence.
That's oh my gosh, so amazing. I'm so excited for this book. Holy cow, it's so needed. And just like I said at the beginning, this is a reflection of my life, of my story. I talk a lot about polishing the mirror because everything starts within. Like you got to
Hmm.
start there before anything else can happen. And that's exactly what you're saying. So I love that so much. And I'm going to celebrate your book when it comes out. Can't wait to get my hands on it. So you're going to be opening one-on-one
Right. Sometime
coaching.
this
Don't you
summer. Hmm.
don't you also do speaking engagements?
Yes, I do. I do right now a lot of virtual ones because I think I told you this when we did our interview, but I'm going to share. I share it everywhere. My wife has
Sure.
stage 4 metastatic breast cancer, so I'm not traveling that much right now. She's doing
Right.
okay right now, but my number one priority after my faith is my commitment to my wife, and I have. I'm proud to say I've been to every single appointment and test that she's had since she had the diagnosis of her cancer, except one. They'd scheduled one at the last minute, and I was in the middle of doing a publicity summit. So I've been to all but one, which the people at the Cancer Center are like floored that I show up because there's so many people who show up without their spouses or anyone. And you can't go through cancer by yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's what's striking me about this is like it's coming full circle. She
Hmm.
was there for you at all those times,
Right.
and now you're able to do the same for her. That's such a beautiful, oh my gosh, it's such a beautiful cycle. Even though the things that are happening aren't beautiful, but the
No, they're
cycle
not.
itself, yeah, is so beautiful. So I want to put your website up here.
Okay.
It's defineyourself.us.
Right.
And I do want to mention, you'll see it on the screen for those of you who are watching. For those who are listening, notice how I have it here. The letter of every word, the first letter of every word is capitalized. That's what I know to be called camel case.
Hmm. Term
And
I learned
so,
today.
yes, I taught Chris this term today.
I
I was
can't be
asking
taught.
him about this before we came on because I've heard this that people with visual, what did I
Impairments.
say? Impairments. Thank you.
Yeah,
That word keeps
that's
escaping
all
me.
right.
People with visual impairments, that it's important for you to use this camel case in your hashtags and in your websites, and tell them why, Chris.
Because when somebody who is visually impaired uses a speech reader, it makes it more understandable for the person who has a speech reader to understand. It says define yourself instead of define yourself. So
Yeah.
it makes more sense when they're hearing it audioly in their ears. Audioly may not be a word, but I'm going to use it and I'm sticking by
It's okay.
it.
Good. Audibly. Yeah, that's good. So yes, if it's like when you see a hashtag, this happens to me. Like when someone puts a hashtag and all of the letters are lowercase, it takes me a minute. I'm like having to separate
Yeah,
what does it really say. But with a speech reader, it reads what it sees. So it
right.
can't distinguish between the words. It's just
Words,
this
right.
jumble of words. And so if you will do the camel case, then the speech reader will can pick out the different words and say
Words.
them correctly.
Right. And it
So,
helps people who are visual. Like if you had hashtag nobody cares about your hashtag, and all lowercase, you're like, all right, where is each word? And then it slows you down and like, this is too hard. I'm moving on. So no, it helps even people with vision if you would capitalize the first letter of each word in your
yeah,
hashtags. Now, some platforms, even if you type that in, put everything in lowercase, and you can't do anything about that. But at least try.
right. Yeah, and that could be a whole nother show on the accommodations that are needed for
Hmm.
people who live with disabilities. That could be a whole nother show, and that's a lot of what we talked about on your show, or a
Hmm.
lot of the things that you talk about on your show too. So remind them the name of your
Yeah, I
podcast.
was going to say, we keep referring to it that you were on it, and people are saying that. I'd love to hear it, but what's it called? Come on,
Right.
you don't say it. Successful, self employed, and disabled.
Yes,
And I
successful.
believe you are an amazing person. And if you haven't already, it will be in the show notes video description here. A link to my YouTube channel that has your interview on it.
Yes, I put that in the description. The YouTube, Chris's YouTube channel, I put in the description. I will also go back and tag Chris. It won't let me tag people until after this is over.
Right.
So I'll go back and tag him in the description so that you can connect with him on the socials, and get to know him, support him. I'm telling you, the things he's doing is amazing after all he's been through, and he's choosing to use that to help others. We need to celebrate that. We need to share that, right? It's so
Right.
good. Oh my gosh, Chris. Thank you so much for being here. It's so good to chat with you again.
Well, thank you.
I
Long time no
Yeah.
see since
Yeah,
Tuesday.
I know, right? I look forward to staying connected with you and to celebrating your book and spreading that far and wide, because it sounds like something that people really need. So
Yeah, the
it's
book's gonna be in paperback and Kindle, and not the launch date, but down the road, I'm gonna do a recording of it, so it'll be an Audible for those of you who love hearing my voice or enjoy just having somebody read a book to you.
yes, yes. I'm also working on an Audible version of my book. And have you ever done one, Chris? An Audible
No, I have
version?
not. So I'm learning as I do. So I used to do
It's
radio, which probably does not surprise anybody. So it's not gonna be all that hard to do. I got the Audacity software on my computer, and I'll just record the
yes.
audio files, then figure out how to upload them, and I'll cross that bridge when I get to it.
Yes, yes. The issue that I'm having is
Hmm.
I can read it just fine. No, I can't. I can't read it just fine. I'm lying. I can I can read the words just
Hmm.
fine, but the emotions that surface as I'm reading it, I cannot read it without there are certain sections I can't read without crying. And so I'm really having to work through being able to speak them clearly enough that
Hmm.
Audible will accept it.
Oh,
So,
okay. Yeah.
yeah. So there are challenges that you don't really even think about, but that's one
I
of them that I'm
love
having. So
audiobooks that are read by the author because they
I
put
do
in the
too.
emotions. And most do. Now, there's one author, I'm not going to mention her name. Okay. Not because that would be rude.
Yeah.
Who wrote a book, and it's kind of like a biography. And she talks about the first time she met the man she was in love with and wound up marrying. And he came in the office and he looked at me and I looked at him. And this is the man you were instantly in love with at first sight, and you're like reading it to me like you're reading the contents of the soup on the back of the soup can. Show me the pat. Let me hear the passion
Right.
in your voice.
That
I was turned on by him. I was turned on by
yeah.
him.
That
He's
I'm so glad you said that because I'm thinking like those passages that I'm gonna read that are very emotional,
mhm.
that's what I was thinking, like, I'm gonna have to be very monotone, but that's
Yeah.
not a good thing.
No,
I
no,
need to
no.
not do that.
I
I
used to be
need
in a
to
writers group, and one thing I loved is when we brought in our work and the author read their own work because they put the passion in and the parts that they know where that passion is, and somebody
yeah,
else reading the work may not see that as a moment that needs to have a passion or emotion that they can convey in their voice.
yeah, that's so true. Oh gosh, so good. Oh my gosh, I could talk to you forever, Chris, literally, but but we need to wrap this up. Oh
Yes,
my
we do.
goodness. Oh, thank you again for being here. It's been such a pleasure as always, Chris. I look forward to our next time to chat, whenever that will be. And thank you all for watching. Thank you for listening. If you have found this helpful, please share it. If you found it worth a 5-star review, I would love for you to help us with that so that our message can reach more people because these messages of hope need to reach people. There are people out there who need to hear Chris's message and my message. So please help us do that. The next one is next week. These are weekly. So I look forward to coming to you next week live again with my next guest. So if you have questions or need help with anything or are interested in being a guest on the podcast, I do have a waiting list right now, but I can add you to that so that when more openings arise, that I can start filling those in. So thank you so much. I look forward to next week. Bye.